How's it going, everybody? Today we are covering something that I think people don't discuss very much out there. Most people see Maya as your everyday software they use to animate, and that's absolutely fine. But I think there's a better way of actually seeing Maya as an animator, and that is Maya as your in-betweener. What is that all about? Let's find out in this week's episode. Before I get started, I would like to actually give a shout out to everyone that actually came to my very first live Q&A. It was incredibly inspiring to me to actually see all your comments, to reply to your comments and see how many people attended. And you guys, obviously, since you're starting, you're learning, you're actually starting your career as an animator, you have all the questions that you need me to answer. I'll probably do feature episodes about it, and you can expect those very soon. Now, let's get to it and let's get started with this episode about Maya being an in-betweener. Going back to the old times where the 9-old man Walt Disney was setting up the very basics, the rules for animation as we know them nowadays, they used to do every single drawing by hand. They used to actually go on paper, flip pages, and do their animation magic in 2D. Now, animators, after a while, because it was so much work, they realized that what if, right? Instead of us doing every single page on every single drawing and having one man doing a whole scene, they would actually do the gold poses, the main drawings that actually carry through the animation from beginning to end. They didn't really have to do the in-betweens, which are the drawings in between that connect the main poses of the whole animation. So they would actually do the rough sketch, right? The base of the animation, and then they would actually pass it along to one or a few in-betweeners. There will be assistants to the main animator, and then the assistants will pick up on those drawings, and they'll go from pose 1 to pose 2. There's about 3 or 4 drawings. So I have to make sure that from drawing 1 to drawing number 3 or number 4, which is the next golden pose, I need to make sure that I fill the gap between those 2 drawings and make it look exactly the same character, doing exactly the same movement, but I just have to connect the dots between number 1 and number 2. So in a way, it's like those little books that you had to actually go and connect the dots between number 1 to number 5 to number 6, and then in the end you get a drawing. It's the same thing, but in animation. So that's basically the flow that the old school animators had in order to make the most work possible in the shortest amount of time. So a very good animator would have had 2 or 3 in-betweeners, 2 or 3 assistants. Those assistants would then end up being like main animators at some point, because they will learn so much from the old masters that in the end they themselves became masters. So people like Glenn Keane or John Lasseter, they were all in-betweeners in the beginning, and then they actually became full-fledged awesome epic animators in due time. So that is basically the system that they had before. Now, today, in 3D, all animators are expected to finish a shot from beginning to end. There's no in-betweening. There's no help from an assistant to actually finish their shots. If you get a shot, doesn't matter if it's in film or games or VFX, you need to actually get that shot. They'll give you the premise of the shot, and you need to actually finish it from blocking, which was going to be the step that the old masters would set up for their assistants, to polish, which would be like the last step when the in-betweeners were actually finishing the whole, connecting the dots between drawings. So if one animator has to finish the one sequence, and we are doing it in pretty much roughly the same amount of time or so, what happened with the in-betweener, with the assistant role? So that role, that assistant role, actually became your software, your Maya, your 3D Max, your blenders. So if you actually start seeing your piece of software of choice as your in-betweener, your mindset towards animation and how you see that piece of software that you use every day will change dramatically, because you will start seeing your skills in animation much more like the masters of old, and you'll start seeing your piece of software as your in-betweener or assistant. And because of it, you don't depend so much on your software, on Maya or Blender, to actually get you as many things as possible for free. So if you have a pose here and then you have a pose over here and you don't add anything in between, what Maya is going to do is this. And this is not interesting. But if you actually were to add this in between, so you still have this pose, but then you have anticipation and then you go into this. This is much more interesting than just that. So you have to think about Maya, or your software of choice, as the most laziest in-betweener in the whole world. If it was a person and it was given to one of the Disney's masters back in the day, most likely this person called Maya will probably get fired in their first day on the job, because the only thing they can do is give you interpolations that are incredibly lazy and just like linear in every single way. They don't give you anything creative per se. Maybe some of you have heard of animating on 2s or animating on 3s or animating on 4s. That is the gap between each pose that you need to define your animation. Like, is it every 2 frames you have a golden pose, or you have like a pose that sets up your animation, or is it 4 frames? Is it 5 frames? Is it 6 frames? Right? It depends on many factors, but that's basically how it is. It's gapped that way. What I would suggest whenever you are setting up your blocking of your animation is to set your poses every 2 to maximum about 3 or 4 frames, so Maya doesn't have to interpolate very much in between those 2 keys, so you know that you're getting exactly what you want. Because your lazy in-betweener, Maya, is basically just trying to figure out exactly how this pose goes to this pose. And this is basically what you want. Like small changes, Maya can sort it out with no problem. Big changes, going from here to here, Maya is rubbish at it. It's gonna be this mess of like even timing everything with just like tweening motion. It's going to be floaty, it's going to be horrible. Don't allow Maya to actually kind of do that to animations. Don't allow Maya to mess up your animations, because you are the one in the driving seat. You are the one giving Maya the information that Maya needs to actually make your animations the best animations possible. I actually used to be the guy that actually tries to put the least amount of keys possible. So you would actually press spline and then all of a sudden you see what you get. Maybe some things work, some things don't work. So the things that work you kind of leave, and then you work a little bit on the things that don't work, and then you kind of hope for the best again. And because of that, my animations, initial animations were completely like disjointed. Some bits were nice, some bits were like floaty and weird, and then the other bits were okay. And that was because I was being lazy and I was not feeding Maya as much information as it needed. As soon as I started setting Maya as my in-betweener, as just a piece of software that is trying to help me to get the best animation possible, and I'm the one driving, I'm the one telling it what I need, then all of a sudden I started putting the keys much more often, everywhere, every 2 frames, every frame sometimes if necessary, in order to make sure that Maya does not give me anything for free, especially if it's a fast movement or something that you want like very pushed. Just do it every key. Maya cannot actually kind of do anything that basically messes up your shot. Just make sure that you are in full control of it. If it's something that is a bit slow or something is a bit more like loose, maybe you can actually kind of do every 2 to 3 keys, 4 keys maybe, but make sure that you actually kind of give Maya as much information as possible. Maya is like the most laziest in-betweener, but at the same time is the most reliable. That's all I had for you guys today. As always, have a great rest of the week, and until then, stay well, stay safe. Peace.